Folks, I am particularly excited about my guest this week on Primetime, not only because he was one of my favorite superstars that I had the great fortune to work with back during my time with the WWF, but also because when we first started inviting guests onto PTSM every week, he was one of the first who very graciously came on the podcast. For that, I am forever grateful. It is great to welcome Brutus the Barber Beefcake back to the podcast, and a lot has happened since we last chatted. Brutus, great to talk with you again. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Better now that we've connected here again. And, as I said, we've got a lot to talk about. Now, in our last podcast together, we pretty much covered, the basics of your life and the inspiring story of, starting out and meeting up with Terry Bollea and traveling around in a van and working for gas money, basically, and right into the great heights that you reached in professional wrestling. Since we chatted, though, you are now a member of the WWE Hall of Fame. And right off, I mean, what did that mean to you for you to finally get that call?
Well, I got to tell you, I was beginning, I really didn't think it was going to happen. And when it did come, it was, just very, very, very exciting. And I know, for my family and everybody, they were really excited and very happy for me to have got that call.
Yeah. So how did it happen? Because like you said, I when we talked that, you didn't really know if it was ever going to come. You didn't know the situation. There was a lot happening. How did the wheels start turning? What was the path for it to finally take place?
Sean, that's probably one of the mysteries of the universe. I'm really not exactly sure what really, made that all happen. I know, WWE, they waited 25 years before they called me after I left back in probably like 94, and left to go and make TV shows and movies with the Hulkster. And I did all his doubling for all that stuff and stunts and all that. And then, so it was, that was, when that call came, that was like, a really big surprise. And a very happy one, to say the least. And then, so, I mean, this, I guess, they had to fill their quota. I mean, I really, I couldn't tell you what the exact, what the parameters were. I know Hunter, who was a friend, of years ago, has, he has a real big role in reaching out to guys and bringing guys, back to the company and everything. And I like to think that, they just thought it was time for Brutus to be, brought in there, and that my reputation and everything, warranted that.
Yeah. Did you hear rumblings, though? Did you have any clue? Did someone tell you, hey, I think they're considering you? Or was it completely out of the blue?
It was really pretty much out of the blue.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. I mean, it was pretty much come down the wire. I figured, if this is going to happen, they were probably going to notify me, ahead of time. Mm-hmm. A lot of times. So some, from what I understand, they usually notify the people. They might tell you to keep it under wraps, and because they have their different ways of announcing it. They had Sports Illustrated make the announcement for me, and I was in Sports Illustrated several times. One of that big issue they had, a Hulkster sitting on top of me, beating my head in, what was the picture there.
Yeah.
And, but it was very, very incredible experience, and getting to go to New York, and I haven't really been to a WrestleMania since WrestleMania 9.
Wow.
To be honest with you, and they have some pretty strange policies about people coming and going, but
Yeah.
you know, you have to abide by their policies, and you know, so I was never really invited, so I never went.
Yeah. Who made the call? Who called you, and what did they say?
Oh, geez, Mark from Talent Relations, I think,
Uh-huh.
made the call. Yeah, they made the call, and you know, let me know what's going on, and said to keep it under your hat. You know, we're gonna have break the news. You know, just before WrestleMania on Sports Illustrated, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, it was just very exciting. And then we were able to, you know, just tell close family members and stuff, and start to get the ball rolling, so we could try to get everybody taken care of, and so we could get up there and get the family members that we could to the event and to the Hall of Fame and to the big party afterwards, which is really remarkable, and then to the whole ball of wax. It's a real experience.
You know, and Brutus, your connection to the Boston area and and family, it must have been pretty awesome for it to be where it took place. What was your family's reaction to this when you were able to tell them that you were going to be in the WWE Hall of Fame?
Well, yeah, I mean, they were just super excited, and it's Boston. I spent many years there, and I still have very deep ties there.
Yeah.
My wife Missy's family, they're all there, and I have friends like Andy Wong from the Kowloon. His family that has owned that for generations. It's a family-run business, and he's been my friend and for forever. And Andy was he was there with us for all the ceremonies and stuff. And it was just tremendous being able to share that experience with close friends and people that have supported me over throughout the years. That have always been there, supporting me, in good times and bad. And I had a pretty bad divorce, a couple of them.
Yeah.
Just those kind of friends. I was able to reach out and have, some of my friends and family there, and just those supports, those that support you, no matter what and stuff, when you can kind of pay it forward and share the experiences with them, because it's a once in a lifetime, deal, that whole, Hall of Fame and the ceremonies and the WrestleMania and everything. And, it just really, I don't know, it's just such a crazy experience, and just being able to share that with those friends and family was just, such a satisfying and gratifying. I'm just super grateful to the WWE, for giving me all the opportunity, and then being able to be recognized by them, is just an honor.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that in your mind there couldn't have been anybody else you would have had induct you than the Hulkster. And last time we chatted, you guys were not even on speaking terms. I want to get into that, but first tell me what it meant to have him induct you that night.
Well, it was an amazing thing. We
full circle.
We're friends for years, and he was kind of on the outs with the company. He was, been in talks with them and stuff, and being able, I think it was a big help. It was a big deal for him to be able to come back and be center stage and be a presenter when they really didn't have any presenters for the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He was kind of the only one really to actually to be the presenter. And funny thing is, I figured I was going to fudge my speech and everything, but he almost fudged his. Start talking about me being the booty man and this and that.
Yeah.
He jumped. I think he jumped about 7 years into the future while he was in the middle of his speech there, and thank God he got out of it real quick. So I don't think a lot of people realized what was going on, but it almost made me bust up laughing, thinking, geez, because he's the one who never makes a mistake, and he's always just so precise and so on point. I think, the fact that the Hulkster's human too,
Yeah.
Well, he could make a mistake, just like anybody else.
Yeah, but I think just the fact of having you two on stage together, you going into the Hall of Fame, was just a tremendous moment in the history of professional wrestling for many people who were, such big fans of both of yours in the 80s and the 90s. And did you, when you were out there, did you kind of have one of those surreal moments? You're just kind of looking, here's Hulk, here I am standing on the stage, and just thinking back about all those miles and times together, and then here you were, like I said, kind of coming full circle.
Oh well, he knew obviously my parents. I knew his.
Yeah.
His dad, and family. His dad wasn't a real big fan of the wrestling business back in the in the pre days, and we were training together in a gym and out by the University of South Florida called Stan's Nature Right Gym. A bunch of crazies, and we used to have our bathing suits on and sun in his dad's backyard and be out there doing jumping squats and push-ups and stuff out in the yard, and he'd come out there and shoo us out of there and tell us not to mess up his grass and stuff. When you and his mom would be making us sandwiches and stuff and bringing them out to us, and when I just started thinking back about those days, and how two guys were with great imaginations and drive, and just going after that like the American dream almost. It's like if you want something, nothing is beyond your reach if you're willing to work hard enough to get it. And I guess that's kind of where we at. And it was something everybody was saying, you guys are crazy. What are you doing? You're wasting your life. You should be doing this. You should be getting an education, go to college. You should do this, and we had an idea, and we were chasing the dream, and then, who could have ever imagined where it was going to really lead us? But it's so gratifying and so, amazing to be able to look back and remember those years when we were struggling, to eat.
Yeah.
Put gas in the car, pay the gym dues, and for it to come, to have to come this far,
Yeah, and for a lot of people who don't know what the whole procedure of that Hall of Fame ceremony is do they have rituals or things that they do? I mean, what was the process like once you got there? And I think there's like a moment where you meet with Vince, and you take pictures with a plaque or something like that. How does that all work when you're a Hall of Famer?
Wow, it's almost a kind of blur. There's a lot of waiting around time. There's a lot of dead time there. Yeah. Just hanging out and waiting, and it was a little chaotic. I mean, not on their part. I mean, just for me, because I not really knowing what to expect, and with family and friends, all going to be part of it, and trying to worry about everybody getting there and being taken care of. And I wasn't really worried about myself. I was just worried that everybody else was going to be happy and be able to be a part of it and stuff. And it just kind of, next thing you know, there I am, and with Hunter and Vince, and we're holding up our rings and showing off my ring, and the plaque thing with it has it looks like metals, those like the pieces that go on like a championship belt. And those pieces, I have them, on my wall here in the house. And it's really, it was a lot of stuff I didn't expect or, have any idea was going to go on. And just, it was just real, amazing, sequence. I didn't really know what to expect and just had to kind of go experience it. And it just kind of goes. And then, but when it's over, it's just like your head's spinning, and it's such a whirlwind thing, with all the people. And there's just so much, the logistics of this operation. There was so many people and they're involved, and it's just amazing to me how they pull it off. WWE is just so good at what they do, and and the people they have working they're all tremendous, great people, and it's just the whole outfit is just one amazing thing to me.
So when you got the ring, is it a really cool ring? I've never seen one of them close up, and do you wear it every day?
I've been contemplating putting it in my box. I'm bad on jewelry and stuff, and I go to the gym, and I'm in the beach and the pool, and I'm afraid I might lose it. I hate to take it off, because that's what I'm afraid I'm going to take it off and lose it. But I'm afraid I'm going to beat it up so bad. By the time a year goes by, I won't anything left of it. I won't be able to show it off, to my grandchild, my grandchildren and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to eventually have to put it away just for posterity.
Yeah, that's a big piece of hardware. Those rings. They certainly look that way. When you did your speech, how did you put it together? How did you kind of whittle it down to what you wanted to say up there?
Well, Missy was a real part of it.
Yeah.
And we did go run it past the one of the guys at WWE. He was very helpful.
Uh-huh.
And pretty much, just whatever we came up with, they liked it, and Missy helped a lot. And just trying to get through it. They had a teleprompter and everything, which definitely helped.
Yeah.
Just to try to get through it without messing up was just a huge relief, and I felt very very happy when I finally was done, and I thought that it seemed like it came off well, and from what I've heard from a lot of people, they were quite happy and thought it was pretty good. I think it came off real well.
Yeah, and for you personally, Brutus, what did it mean to you to finally have that recognition after all those years? What did it really? How did that hit home to you as far as finally getting up on that stage and being presented that ring? Because there are not many people in this world who will ever be able to be part of that that group of people who have been honored.
Oh no, and it's absolutely true. And the thing is, there's being reaching, being top, getting to the top of the mountain. They always say you got to be careful, who you see going up, because when you're coming back down, you might have to see those same people, and
yeah.
There's how you have to deal with people and things. I've heard a lot of bad things, and many things, negative things, and there's a lot of haters out there in the world.
Yeah.
And the thing is, sometimes you even you have doubts. You begin to doubt and things, but at the end of the day, when something like the Hall of Fame comes along, and then you really get that. It's just a real special feeling that you begin, then that pushes your doubts to the side, and that you realize, well, geez, I think, that I did deserve it. And, everybody says, you deserved it and everything. And sometimes you have doubts and everything, and, but, when that happens and you get a real good feeling and everything, and you say, yeah, you know what, geez, I guess, I guess that you did a good job, and that you deserved it, and you worked hard. You worked so hard, sacrificed a lot. I mean, we sacrificed being with our families, all the traveling and the time away.
Yeah.
I lost my mom in 1988 to cancer, and I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with her. She was battling it and was, like so many people, was fighting cancer, and people and they said, she was doing better, and she had lost her hair, and she was frail and sickly, and then she made a comeback and got her hair back and was looking healthy, and every where things were good, and then next thing you know, she was just struck down in a matter of weeks almost, from being able to go out and have dinner to being with hospice, and she refused to die in the hospital, and basically passed away in the little house where I grew up down in Tampa.
Yeah.
And I was able to be there in her last moments. I was her oldest son, and she basically she had fallen like almost into a coma, and I was still in California and was traveling, and but by the grace of God, she hung on and waited for me, a day or so to get home and to be able to be there with my brothers and sisters and my dad, and spend those last moments. So that I was very grateful that God, granted me that to be there with her at the end, and it was very sad, but it was also, she was a great mom of 5 kids, and a tremendous, she was a nurse, and so she did tremendous things, and was, and helped people her whole life, and so I was very proud.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. That's just one of the sacrifices along the way. And back then, God, I've mentioned it a few times. It's like selling your soul to the devil in a way, because there's this tremendous side of this where, the fame and the fortune, the recognition, the self-fulfillment because of something you're living a dream, but you can't get off that roller coaster ever because you'll lose your place. And with that, you give up so much. And you mentioned losing your mother, and I know there were a lot of other things. But it really is, for as much greatness there is to it, but there's a real downside to it of what, you and many others had to sacrifice to get there.
Very, very, very true. It was that being the life, and traveling, being on the road for so many, 300 and something days a year, and being away. It's just, it's a big sacrifice, and dealing sometimes, a lot of times you feel like, geez, was it really worth it? And everything. But my family, was always, my mom and my dad supported me, and they said, whatever you choose to do, we back you. And they always did when I was young in the business and struggling and not making money and barely surviving. And they were always, they didn't have a lot, but whatever they could do to help me, they were doing it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things that kept me going, and helped me to get over the hump, and then get that big break at WWE, and go on from there.
Well, I'll tell you, Brutus, I was among many who were just so elated when that announcement was made that you were going into the Hall of Fame, because well deserved. And I mentioned Terry, and like I said, when we talked last time, you guys were not even speaking. What changed? How did you guys, get back to that friendship that had existed for decades and decades?
Well, actually, he reached out with the phone call one day. The phone just rang, and Missy said, "Oh my God, oh my God." I said, "What?" She said, "It's Terry."
Yeah.
And I couldn't hardly believe it. And just picked the phone and started talking. It was like we talked yesterday. Always was like, he said life's too short, and blah 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 blah. And then next thing you know, we had got back together and sat down and talked over things and tried, and buried, whatever hatchets or whatever, things that were in the past, should just stay in the past, and move on, into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could say that it's still that way, Sean, but it kind of went back to the way it was before now. I haven't heard from him in 6 months.
Mm. Well, it's like old friends and life gets complicated, but I have a feeling that door is never going to be closed between you two. And I'm sorry to hear that you guys aren't chatting right now, but you guys have been friends for too damn long. I think that you guys always will be. But like you said, things happen. I mean, you got friends that are all over the country, but I really.
Well, he has his life to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has his life to live. I have mine. I have no hard feelings, and whatever. It's all good. I wish the best for him and his family. His son Nick, his daughter Brooke. I just saw recently at an event in Knoxville, and she came over and held Missy's little dog and took pictures and was just super nice to us and so there's no hard feelings there. And if we talk tomorrow and said, hey, let's go to dinner or anything, I'm sure that'll happen. I remain hopeful that it could still happen.
Yeah. Well, and when you talk, it'll be like you talked again yesterday. I've been going through folks, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but Brutus has his books out there, and it's Brutus, the Barber, Beefcake, Struttin, and Cuttin. And, I've heard this from more than one person, and I've read it, who say that this is one of the best wrestling books ever. And what I love about it, Brutus, is that you just have you don't go on with these big long stories. You've got this collection of slices of life and the journey of a professional wrestler who saw it all. And there's just so many stories where you're laughing your ass off. Touching stuff, moments that you had. I'm not kidding. So I'm leafing through it today because I knew it was going to get you back on. And there's things that we never got to talk about. The book was coming out. We didn't want to reveal a whole lot of stuff. But there's just so much in here. And one that just always stands out when I read the Andre the Giant story in Japan. And like that, I had heard a lot of Andre stories, but I'd never heard that. And I got to thinking about it. That, when you're a 7'4", he was at the time, and weighed, over 400 pounds, could still move pretty well, whatever.
600 plus.
Yeah, well, at one point.
600 plus, Sean.
Yeah, at one point. But, you got this guy's getting on an airplane. Yeah, this guy's got to get on an airplane. And you don't think that, he's got to go to the bathroom. And I said, you know what? That had to have been a major obstacle in his life. Like you said, he would have to plan when he got on a plane, just because he couldn't go in the bathroom there. So
how do you go into a restaurant, or spend, stuff and go to have dinner and restaurant and drinks and hang out with friends and colleagues and things, and only to realize he couldn't fit into any normal bathroom, any normal sized bathroom, and so it was probably for him. It must have been something that he always had to be conscious and aware of, and
had to plan.
And that just means to have to be planning something like that for every day in your everyday life. You're just so big that there's only certain places you can go. That's just, to me, was just an amazing thing. And Andre was just an amazing guy. He really was.
Well, so tell me the story of the hotel with the hazmat team. It's like I was crying.
Well, I
I
mean,
was laughing so
KO
hard.
Plaza,
Yeah.
the KO Plaza. Yeah, I mean, back in 1980.
Yeah.
Geez, it just seems like another lifetime. The KO Plaza was one of the most, the biggest. I mean, it was nearly 90 stories tall. I mean, it was one of huge, big, beautiful, just restaurants and shops and the rooms. I remember sitting in a room with Hulk and a couple of guys when there was a typhoon and earthquakes and stuff, and the chandelier in the room was flowing back and forth because the building, it's one of the earliest earthquake proof buildings that they built in Tokyo to withstand because you got Mount Fuji. You look out the window and see Mount Fuji, and they have typhoons and hurricanes and those tropical typhoons there, and between the earthquakes where the buildings. So they build these buildings so that they can move, but they don't break. They don't fall down. Hang on, I gotta let somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, can you get in? And the Japanese people, they're just such hardworking people,
Yeah.
and so the maids would they'd have two or three, the little 5 foot tall mama-san, they 2 or 3 of them would come into a room and they just go around that like a whirlwind, and to see them when they came into the room to find the bathtub 4 inches deep and poop.
Well, I mean, what was the man to do though, right?
Oh, mama.
Yeah.
Oh, the lady just fainted. She just fainted away. And then when the other lady saw the other one faint, she almost fainted. And then next thing you know, they got that people in the white suits in there, and they just can't hardly figure out what happened, how it's possible, and then, but the people, they always, the Japanese people would always look at Andre with he was just so much bigger than life.
Oh, God,
it was
yeah.
just always something that.
Yeah. Well, and
it was an amazing thing just watching.
Yeah, and no disrespect to his memory, but boy, I never thought of that would be a major issue for him, especially in Japan. When things are kind of built for smaller people. But that is just one of the great stories in this book. I mean, there's just so many of them, and something else I want to talk to you about too is that a lot of people don't really know about, and like the legend of the warrior is still out there. They've got websites devoted to some of his promos, but you got along with him very well. You were friends, and I don't think a lot of people understand or understood who he was, but you were one of the few that I guess would be considered a friend of his during that time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The early Warrior days, especially when he came in and he was traveling, I would travel with him and hit the gym with him and have meals with him and everything. And then as things progressed, at first he was, it was quite pretty humble. And then I guess as, once things progressed and he began to get, a lot more recognition and I think some people got into his head. Sometimes that can be a great thing, and sometimes it may not necessarily be so great, and it can change people, and everybody reacts differently to certain things, and he became more of a recluse and didn't hang with the guys anymore and kind of shunned, the boys, and which didn't make it easier for him, only made things a little more difficult, I still enjoyed being always able to just hang out with everybody and never, and always just be a part of one of the boys. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an important thing, with everybody's comrades in arms and traveling together and working together to make a great show, make a great product. And and night after night, week after week, month after month, year after year. It's just, it's an important thing for everybody to get along and work together. Excuse me, brother.
Yeah. Well,
and eventually, he didn't. He wasn't real good at getting along with everybody after a while. He just really got to himself.
Yeah. Well, and he didn't really, like you said, he didn't come from that world really where you'd come up through these really lowly independent ranks. The miles and miles on the road, hotel rooms like that. He was his path to fame was pretty rapid, and he was a gym rat, and that was at a time. There certainly were people who lifted weights, but not like he was. I mean, he was a bodybuilder, and you mentioned in the book, like people like George the Animal Steel or Kamala or these other guys that they didn't really, that wasn't their gimmick, and a lot of the older guys didn't really understand him either, so that made it a little bit tougher. But I think, as you mentioned, it was. So, maybe, too much too soon. And then suddenly the fame was there and he's getting his own, dressing room. And that probably didn't help his cause behind the curtain.
Yeah. Well, he was a smart guy. He was a licensed chiropractor when he came to us, So, I mean, you don't, they don't just give that to dummies, out there. Yeah. He worked hard like that, but there's something to be said for, that time in territories where guys spend time and you start wrestling in the first match. I mean, I learned, Sean, I never go to a wrestling school or anything like that. My first match was real, I had some basic training, but my first match, I started learning by having matches in the ring. And that's the way I was, learned. And over a period of years, and traveled almost every single territory in this country except the Texas territory. I've worked pretty much every single one of them. And then there's something to be said for, paying those dues on the road, and you gain a certain, respect for the business, and there's certain respect for the rest of the guys too. You respect that everybody, has worked hard also to get to the, up to that level. Everybody works extremely hard when you're at that level where we were all at.
Yeah. And I wish I had time to go through a lot more of these stories, but there are some of these kind of obscure people that people may not have known that well, at least if you were somebody who followed the WWF. But like your stories about King Curtis, and it was kind of like the master blade guy who basically became the roadmap of the world. What kind of a character was he?
Oh, well, I never got to really hang out with him a lot until later, when we were at WCW and the Dungeon of Doom stuff, when I really got to spend a lot more time with him. And then I got to spend some time with him in Hawaii at his home and eat with him and his family and everything. And it just the nicest guy. But I mean, I watched him as a fan when I was a kid growing up, and I mean, I got to tell you, the guy terrified me. I thought he was crazy, and he was just bigger than life and everything. And then once I got to know what a big teddy bear, what a father and just a tremendous, guy that he was, just would take the shirt off his back to and give it to you. It was just an amazing time and amazing thing to be able to experience. The greatness of people, that a lot of the people that were in our business, and knowing where he came from and where and everything. It was just, geez, I don't think it's sometimes words are hard to define to describe it.
Well, I mean, you look at the picture, you talk about, really kind of the epitome of a old school wrestler, because if you see the picture, and Brutus has pictures in his book of, God, I don't know how many blade jobs he must have performed over the years, but man, my God, it was like,
hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds. We didn't get a chance to tell last time we chatted about your relationship with Greg Valentine, who has always been a really fascinating individual to me. But I know, over the years and decades, you guys have known each other a long time. Tell me a little bit about that relationship with Greg.
Well, Greg, is another one like I met, when I was in the territories. I met him in Charlotte.
Yeah.
He was living in Charlotte, and he was running with Flair and Steamboat and that whole crowd. It was, he was a very accomplished guy, and I watched his father, Johnny Valentine, when I was growing up, and he used to go to the Sportatorium in Tampa, and he was another one. Johnny Valentine he just scared the hell out of me. He was just, watching him in the ring, just pounding on people.
Yeah.
There was you couldn't see through, people would say, wrestling's fake. I said, if you ever watch Johnny Valentine have a match, especially if you were there close and you watch these guys under the lamp, and Johnny was an old school 45-minute, there was no 10-minute, 15-minute Johnny Valentine match. Right. It was 45 minutes. And by the time you're under these lights, you're sweating and it's hot and down in Florida. And when he'd hit somebody and sweat would just fly all through the air and stuff. And you're watching, you're going, oh my God, you could just hear the sound, poof, and splat, and sweat would fly through the air. And you just know, that doesn't get any more real than that, and Greg was a lot like his dad too. His dad had a real dry sense of humor, was a real big time ribber, loved to pull ribs. I think I might even talked about a couple of ribs that Johnny pulled on people and pulled on Greg and things. And Greg wasn't big on ribs, but he had that same kind of sense of humor like his dad did.
Yeah.
And he was a great hand when I was at first coming to WW, then it was WWF.
Yeah.
Greg was there, and it was, in big programs with Tito, and I think he had the Intercontinental belt maybe when I had first gotten there, and we hung out some together, but he kind of really took me under his wing a little bit. I was new to that New York and whole Northeast area. It can be very intimidating, as well as I do. Driving in D.C. and Baltimore and Philly and New York City and Boston and all those towns.
Yeah.
And Greg had already been there, and had a good grasp of everything. And he kind of showed me the ropes and really helped me to learn my way around and learn how to take care of myself, especially, and you have to. His style was always very, very rugged and you watched Greg wrestle and you believed, you believed in that wrestling was real, especially after you got in the ring with him.
Yeah, a little stiff.
But but it was all in good. It was all for love of the business, and respect to our business, and you can't forget that.
Yeah, and you guys have been friends, all these years. We're bouncing around a little bit here, but there are things that after I had, we had our conversation with the last podcast, or just and reading your book, and there were other, things that you reveal in there. And we talked a lot about, your accident, the parasailing accident. And folks, if you want to hear all the details about it, it's a fascinating story and how Brutus got through that. But a lot of people don't realize where you were at that time in your life when it happened. You were in a really had a lot going on, a lot of bad things. You were going through a divorce, or had gone through. You had lost homes. I don't know, financially you were in trouble. What was happening at that time and before this happened, and how did you get through it all?
Man, that's a pretty long story there, but I was split up from my first wife. I married a young girl, and I was, my success in the mid '80s there was really running wild there. And the accident happened in 1990. I'm basically in 1990, they were grooming me for the Intercontinental Belt, and a big program with Mr. Perfect, with Honky. First it was going to be Honky, and then Warrior stepped in and kind of got kiboshed. And then the next time around, then it wound up going to be the Warrior moved on to the world title, and then they were going to put that Intercontinental title on me. And Mr. Perfect and I had a real good chemistry, so that was going to be, me and him running for a while with that, which would have been just incredible. And then that's when the accident kind of happened and totally scuttled that ship. Yeah. And to be honest with you, brother, it's by the grace of God that I'm here. Thank God for that doctor. I lost my mom in '88, my dad in '89. My mom died, let's say, 2 days after Christmas. My dad died 2 days before Christmas. Wow. 1 year apart, exactly. Wow. And then the next year was that 1990 year where I found out my wife was cheating on me with some biker dude, and this all kind of stuff was going down. I had just opened a restaurant in California, and then that was going south. And then when the accident happened and everything, now it didn't look like I would ever wrestle again, and my career was gone. And financially I was in ruins. And just some friends stepped up. My friends and family stepped up and took care of me. And Hulk was there too, helping me out, helping me get well and recover. And I got to say that God definitely. I don't know. Maybe that was an intervention for me or something. Gave me a reality check, and boy, was that a serious reality check. But that's one of the big things that kind of helped, get me through all that was, my faith and my belief that things were, I had to just have faith that things were going to work out and not give up. It was a bit easy to give up. There was a time right before the accident happened where all this was going on, and financially I just probably lost $1 million between real estate. The market was crashing. I had just invested in homes and things, and I was losing my butt. And then that restaurant was going south. I just invested, $100,000 in this restaurant and equipment, and I put $300,000 into the lease, or almost $400,000 into a 5-year lease, and all that. When the restaurant closed, the people came after me for all that. So it was, there was a lot of reason to put a bullet in my head, and it would have been easy to give up. And,
did you reach that point? Were you that low at points of time then?
I was pretty low, brother. Especially when the accident happened. When the accident happened, and I woke up, and when the doctor told me right before they took me in that they were going to try to save my eyes, because Sean, I was blind for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I was blind going into this surgery, but due to the optic nerve damage, and basically the doctor had went against all his colleagues. They all said, "This is a waste of time. This guy's not going to make it. This is just all a waste of time." And he said he refused. He wouldn't listen to anybody. He said, "Look, we're going to do this. So let's get ready. Let's get it right. And we're going to do it." And he saved my life. There's no question about it. And, and God give me the strength to just, he said, the doctor said, "We don't understand it, but they just said your body is so strong that it just wouldn't die."
Yeah.
It just wouldn't die. It just the heart kept on beating, and somehow my brain wasn't damaged and didn't bleed. The hit that I took to my head, mostly 99,000 out of 999 cases out of 1,000 people don't live; they die,
Yeah.
and you get some kind of hemorrhage to your brain, and you die. I mean, just from car accidents, from falling on your head, from different things. It kills so many people.
Yeah.
And how I was able to walk away from it, it's a miracle. I have no question. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a modern day miracle. I say my prayers every day, every night. I get on my knees and thank God for bringing me through it, and and giving me the opportunity to get back on my feet. The support from my family and friends was just unwavering and was tremendous. And next thing you know, bam, I was off and running again, like nothing ever happened.
Back in the ring, even.
And people just like, yeah. That was a tough decision. It took a little time to feel comfortable and not have any fear that something bad was going to happen. I just had to make up my mind that what's going to happen is going to happen, and so I'm just going to go for it. They said you're crazy, you can't do it, don't do it, you're going to die, and they said everything, and I said, yeah, you know what? Someday I'm going to die anyway, so might as well do it. Go out doing something I love with my friends, doing what I love. I've spent my whole life doing, and then and so that's that. I just put my head down and pushed it forward. Just walked into the wind with the wind blowing as hard as it could, but it couldn't hold me back.
Yeah. Well, and you're still here, and that's awesome. And but the price that you guys pay,
happy and healthy.
Yeah, and but the price you pay, and then many don't have insurance. They never had it, and look at somebody like Brian Knobs is struggling right now. He's got an infection in one of his knees, and it's not like these guys have United Healthcare, and it's amazing that they are able to even go on now because their bodies are just so beat up over the years. And when you have major medical issues, there's not a lot of financial help because you can never get insurance. They're independent contractors.
Yeah, I talked to Brian. He was just getting moved into a new facility for rehab to try to get him back on his feet.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll get a chance to go and visit him and stuff. I think he has a GoFundMe, and we wish the best. I always reach out to Brian, on all holidays, and and his wife's health is faltering too, and I feel so bad.
Yeah.
And I hope that the fans out there, will contribute to his GoFundMe and help Brian out, because he's a crazy and wild guy, but he's always got a big heart. He's always had a big heart, and was always a good guy, and he'll always reach out to help you, if he can. And so we're wishing our best for Brian, that's for sure.
Yeah, I actually texted him today, and he answered back, said that he's still got that infection, and they're hoping that they can beat that. But folks like Brutus said, if you can help him out with his GoFundMe, man, please do, because he's still got to work. He's still a lot of his income is going to a lot of these shows and that kind of thing. So he needs to be back on his feet. And as we wrap up here, Brutus, a lot of people want to know how your health is. How you doing? You said you're healthy and happy. I hope that that's the case all the way around.
Yeah, I hurt my back a few years ago, and my back's got better. I had my knee replaced, and my knee's back to 100%.
Great.
I'm running around and hitting the beach, me and Missy, and going to the beach and hitting the pool, and get to the gym here and there, and just having fun, spending time with the grandkids up in Boston, and being with family. I'm enjoying every minute of being at home with friends and loved ones, and friends and family, and sleeping in my own bed. I'm just loving every minute of it.
Yeah, and I know a big part of that is that young lady who said, "I love you." One of the first things she ever said to you, and one of the best things that ever happened to you, because I know she runs the show. Missy.
She's the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
She gets in the kitchen and whips up breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me, and something that I didn't have for most of my life. And now it's just so important. Just that to me, it's so important to me, and so so great that she, wants to take the time and the effort to put forth to do that for me. Just because she's that kind of person. She's just a wonderful, wonderful, loving person, and just the biggest, big heart, and will do anything for you. And I'm grateful to have her. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and a very shrewd business person. I know she's in charge, boy. She keeps you straight. Brutus, I want to, when we put the word out, we were talking to you again. We got a bunch of questions, so I'm hoping I can throw some at you while we have you. Okay.
Sure.
All right, this first one is from Ethan Fisher, and he says, always looked like grenades were going off with your Brutus Barber ring attire. Ever provide input into your flashy gear, and who designed it, and how many times? Yeah, that's what it says. And who designed your costumes? I know you had a lot. You did have a lot of input, right?
Sure, yeah, tremendous. Hulk turned me on to the guy. His name was Michael Braun, and I reached out to Michael Braun before the WrestleMania, for the Hall of Fame thing, but he was going to be out of the country. He's got out of the kind of clothes designing business and had a new line of work that he had been doing, and he was traveling abroad, so he couldn't help me out. But he was a super nice guy. But he made clothes for like Cher and Jimi Hendrix and stuff, and this was super, super talented guy. And he made the whole Brutus, the early Brutus stuff, with all the animal prints. And then once they, hung the Barber moniker on me in '87, we had to take it to the next level. And that's when we started putting the fishnets and cut holes in it, and on the legs and the butt. And then he had the whole fishnet all the way down the sides, and all the crazy jackets and all that stuff. And just, he really was a big part of helping, me, put the Brutus personality into those clothes and run them out to the ring, man. And you had magic, and, God bless him. I put a lot of money into those clothes, but it was well worth it, and a lot of time and effort to get it. And, I changed outfits. I wore almost never, it would be hard pressed to find me ever two pictures of me in the exact same outfit.
Right. Yeah.
The gloves were always different. The bow tie was different. The jacket was different. The boots were different. The armbands were different. It was always, I changed it up every time, all the time. And I was kind of proud of being able to be, an innovator, not an imitator, being somebody who was a leader and not a follower. And, a lot of guys, I turned Macho Man on to my guy, and because Macho was, he was a great, talent, but his outfits were, he came out with a big robe thing, and he had the headband on and everything, but it wasn't much. It just wasn't enough. And then I sent him to my guy, and the guy, he made the cowboy hat.
Yeah.
He did all the clothes and all the stuff in a little different style from what Beefcake was, in a way that so Macho could have his own niche, and it's not always the clothes that make the man. It's the man that makes the clothes, but for Macho's, thing, it was also the clothes.
Yeah,
it really gave him an extra boost, to come out there with all his stuff and really look, like a top guy, get, not just be a champion, but look like a champion, look like, a world class guy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, they did, and man, it did a lot for your career too.
I wore many jackets.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, Brutus, that, it went from, the gimmick that you were like ready to rip lockers off a wall over, and what that turned into. I know you mentioned in the book that, you were one of the fastest selling dolls, not dolls, action figures and was, making, I think he got a royalty check of several $1,000s, and it just took off. It was just amazing. And of course, the hair cutting that was another part that just people would want to see those matches. Whose hair he's going to cut. Ethan followed up with it. He's like, how many? I don't know why he mentions Lanny's, but he says, how many times did you cut Lanny's hair?
I really only once, really pretty good. And that was
that stood out absolutely.
WrestleMania 6.
Okay, and then any memorable road stories? We talked about Greg that can be mentioned. Any story you got on the Hammer that? And even if you can't, it's not supposed to be mentioned. Mention it.
Well, here's a quick one. Yeah. I have been straining my brain for it seems like a decade. Yeah. Greg ran into this girl in California who was one of the big time porn girls, and they called her the Snake Lady, but she was really nice lady, and she traveled a little bit, came on the road. I remember being in Pennsylvania somewhere, and she was just a hilarious person and stuff. And she went out and got this little doll, like a baby, that looked like a baby and had like a little bassinet and stuff. And she's walking around at one of the shows and this thing, and with this doll in there, and people going like, "Yeah, this is her baby," and the boys are looking at her. And for a second, it almost looked like it was a real baby, And,
yeah.
And Greg was just kind of rolling with it too, and it was he, because I said he had a kind of crazy, weird sense of humor, and he just rolled with it, and it was just I saw some of the people's faces, and we just laughed and laughed and laughed when we were together after that. Just unlimited, unbelievable over some of the crazy funny stuff that we wound up doing on the road. And that one and I've never told that story to anybody before. I wish I could remember the girl's name, but
well, I'm sure when she walked in there with the baby, there's some boys going, "Oh man, I hope she doesn't think that's mine," or something. Put the fear of God into many of them. Okay. He also wants to know: is there any wrestler that you wish you had the chance to work with and never did? Anybody that stands out that you really wish?
Maybe The Rock.
Yeah, yeah.
I never got to wrestle with The Rock. I mean, I wrestled his dad many times, and he's a good friend. Yeah. And the one guy, that I admire his style and everything. I mean, I got to work with Steve Austin, but he wasn't the same Steve Austin. He was just Stunning Steve when I wrestled him, and it would have been fun to have a match with Steve and The Rock. I think would have been great. It would have been fun to wrestle, a match or like a tag match or something too. Where you get a lot of interaction or something going there. It sure would have been fun to do that.
All right. Sean Daniel says, "This is what I've been waiting for. First, it's not a question, but now is my opportunity to let Brutus know that he was what caused me to become a wrestling fan. He was my favorite superstar." And he says, "Please let him know, Sean." Well, I just did. And he said, "Secondly, my question, whose hair was the hardest to cut?"
Adrian Adonis.
Really?
The first one. That was the hardest one ever. Trying to get the razor to work, and right there in WrestleMania 3 in the ring, and his hair was sweat, and it was all sweaty, and Adrian his hygiene wasn't good, and it was so greasy that the little battery-powered clippers just would stop when you try to push it into his head. It just would stop. It would stop and stop. And I was panic-stricken. I had to get him to throw me some scissors into the ring. Literally, they were panicking. They finally got the scissors in there. Oh, once I was able to chop a little bit off with the scissors, I went back to the clippers again and wound up kind of figuring it out and realized what I had to do to run it right along his scalp to try to get right on the hairline there to get it going. And I finally did get it going a little bit, but I was a few seconds of sheer panic there.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Because none of that was discussed. There was no game plan. None of that was laid out. None of that was planned. None of that, me going out there and helping Piper we just winged everything, brother.
Yeah.
Winged it. There was nothing, laid down. Say, hey, you're going to go out here. You're going to do this. Piper's going to go outside. There was none of that stuff. Like now the matches are laid out. Every move, everything is scripted. Nothing like that was done. And it was just, hey, here's what we're going to do. You're having the match. I'm going to go out there and then just, and Piper says, here, Brutus, you cut us here. And, we're off to the races.
Yeah, it's funny how the business has changed. Where you guys, you had to do a lot of improvising these days. It's not quite the same. Here's a question from Aiden Yastro. He says, "How did you end up working for Portland Wrestling, and what did you think of Don Owens as a promoter?"
Well, the Owen family he had a brother, Elton, that ran one of the towns, Eugene, and he was a good man. He was a promoter for many, many years. Uh-huh. I spent a year out there. Stan the Man Stasiak, former WWF world champion. I had Kurt Hennig's first match in the wrestling business out there, and I think it was in Eugene, one of the small towns. Him and his dad brought him out there, and to start his wrestling career out there, and I think Kurt wound up blowing his knee out in one of the first couple of weeks that he was there, and then wound up having to go back to Minnesota, where he was from, to get a small knee surgery, and then never wound up coming back out to Oregon again, which is a shame. It would have been great to have had Kurt, but I mean, I got to meet Larry the Axe Hennig, and we watch him do some stuff, and they did some angles on TV with him and Stan, and just it was an amazing time to these guys were my mentors and that I had watched growing up, and just to be able to interact with them in the ring was just an unbelievable honor, and a privilege.
Yeah. And he follows up with that by saying, was it difficult to be around Matt Bourne in those days, both inside and outside of the ring? Not sure what he's basing that on.
Well, be honest with you, I drove from Tampa all the way to Portland in 3 days, across country. It's from Florida. Theirs was nearly 4,000 miles or something. Yeah. And my first couple of days, my first day in the territory was that Saturday night was a TV, and I walked in, and Dutch Savage was the booker. I don't know if Don was there that night. At least he wasn't in the dressing room at that time. And Matt Bourne, and I didn't know, but I heard his father, where he's the second generation. His father was Tony Bourne, who had worked in the territory and everything. And Matt said something to me, some real smart ass comment to me in the dressing room. And next thing you know, Dutch Savage and a couple of people had to pull me off of him, because back then I was, Dizzy Hogan, or I think they were calling me Dizzy Golden or Dizzy Ed Boulder, and I was in good shape, 240, 250 pounds. Matt wasn't exactly a big guy, and when he started popping off to me, man, I was going to stand up for myself. I wasn't taking nothing from nobody, right. And they had to pull me off of Matt Bourne the first night in the territory.
Did it get better?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but I had to let them know, and I'd let everybody know that, you ain't gonna, you ain't gonna get away with it. I had to learn how to take care of myself, and that was what's going to happen. If you mess with me, you're going to get in trouble.
We got a series here of people very fascinated with the British Bulldogs and your relationship with them. Aiden asks, were the British Bulldogs stiff to work with during your run with them over in the WWF? What was your experience working with them?
Well, it was great, but the Bulldogs were young. I mean, Dynamite was a little more experienced than Davey Boy.
Right.
I don't know how much time Davey Boy had working in the States, but Dynamite had been working in Japan a lot. So he had that real fast and a crazy style, flying off the top and out into the crowd and stuff. And Davey Boy was just strong. Like, we used to do a thing where he'd press slam me all the time, and I'd be like off his fingertips, pushing off his shoulder, and he'd have me way up in the air and just toss me across the ring like I was a rag doll and stuff. So Greg and I worked with them, but it was a lot of a learning experience. We had to try to bring them up to speed because the Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham, we took the belts from, Barry Windham decided, 2 days after we had won the belt, to quit. And we were supposed to, wrestle them for, 6 months all over the territory. And now all of a sudden we didn't have opponents. And so we had to get the Bulldogs kind of up to speed fast. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of, there was a lot of miscues going on at first, but, they were great young, and very talented guys. And so, we got them up to speed pretty quick. And I mean, the matches, brother, that we had with those guys are just phenomenal. I mean, just when I look back and watch, you look at that WrestleMania 2 match in LA with them guys, and you watch the stuff that we used to do. I mean, they're so solid. There's not, you can't, the kicks, the punches, all the slams and suplexes, everything is just so solid. You wouldn't quite say they're stiff, but they're solid. You couldn't see through anything that we were doing there. Anybody would say, "Oh, that's fake." You think, you come over and let Dynamite Kid come flying off the top of a headbutt, and you tell me that that's fake. I said, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Well, Michael Gonzalez wants to know: is there a particular story that you remember working with those guys in the ring? A particular match that something really stands out to you?
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of matches with them. But once we had the belts, we worked, a lot of main events. We worked in the Maple Leaf Gardens, which, was a pretty, which is where the hockey team plays, which is, in Canada, hockey is the religion, and so the fans up there, they're crazed. And we wrestled the Bulldogs, and Dynamite Kid, all 4 of us were bleeding, and Dynamite Kid suplexed me standing on the top rope all the way across basically my feet were landed almost in the other corner. And the match, we wound up with like I don't know if it was some kind of a draw or some kind of was a count out or something. They didn't beat us for the belts. And then we brought the match back, and then we did the same thing a second time where Dynamite, because I wouldn't have let anybody, I trusted Dynamite. I knew Dynamite for a while, and I knew what kind of strength and power and what I knew that his skill level was up to the task, and I let him, and I went for it, and we did the same thing, and we did the suplex off the top rope, and then we wound up getting our hands raised to keep the belts. And I mean, the place, we had sold it out the time, the last match, and then we brought it back and sold it out again. I mean, and the people went crazy. It was just like, they couldn't believe it. These matches are just, 30, 40-minute matches, just, up, down, all around. But we kept it in the ring, Sean. We weren't out in the crowd. We weren't breaking tables. We weren't bashing chairs over or anybody's heads or light bulbs or baseball bats with barbed wire on them, lighting people on fire. We wrestled. We were in the ring and we wrestled for 30 or 40 minutes. And I'm telling you, the people never stopped screaming the whole time.
You mentioned this in your book about, God, you can call them ribs, but the Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy took it to the extreme. And AJ Ganella wants to know what is your best memory of the Dynamite Kid and also the worst incident you saw him do? Folks, you got to read the book. You'll learn a lot, but anything that really stands out?
God, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I remember in Baltimore one night, had to be 10 below zero. Just so cold. Dynamite Kid came in my bag and got my scissors out and cut one of the referee's legs of his pants off. And he didn't have another pair of pants.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So
that's an extreme.
10 below zero. He had to. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope he found a pair of sweatpants.
They used to. He had to finally. He had to bar some sweatpants for somebody to make it home. But the Davey Boy used to go. We used to some of the smaller towns. Sometimes we'd be in a locker room like with high school or something, and there used to have all the locks on lockers and stuff. And in the coach's office, if you could find it, there was a master key that would open the locks. Davey Boy would go in, find that master key in the coach's office, and then unlock 15, 20 locks, and then put them on somebody's bag.
Oh, God.
So the bag would weigh 20 pounds because it'd have 25 locks all over the handles. Just so many locks on it, you could barely lift the bag. Or he'd lock their bag to a locker so that they couldn't get it, so somebody would have to come in and cut the locks off, or they'd have to try to find the key so they could unlock with the locks. And oh man, he caused some people a lot of grief with all the locks and things. They would super glue people's zippers on their pants together so you couldn't get your zipper. Your zipper would never work. Cut all the shoelaces, out of their shoes. So they go to put the shoes on, all their shoelaces are all cut all the way down.
Those are the mild ones, right? I mean, you want to learn some more, folks, you got to read the book. But got another one here for you. How did you feel about unexpectedly turning face at WrestleMania 3 with little to no build-up and starting the Barber gimmick that same night?
Well, yeah, it was, really, they didn't tell me I was switching babyface. I mean, I had an idea we were doing something. I was going to be wrestling Adrian, but he really didn't fill me in anything. And so, I mean, it was a big shock. Whether I was going to do this or that was one thing, but really kind of almost changing my gimmick from Brutus Beefcake and doing the thing here to all of a sudden now being called the Barber, and a whole different moniker and and some different, and really with no real warning, or no prep time, and no, didn't really give me a real good heads up about what I was going to have to be expected to do or anything. That was not a good day, not an easy day. And I was, that time I was pretty PO'd at some people, not a happy camper, but, I was glad the way it turned out.
Yeah, if you only knew then what it was going to turn into, but I imagine at the time, because you talked about it, that you were like, "What? You're going to have me be a barber? What am And it's amazing how if you would have known then what it was going to turn into, it would have been a much different story that night. But it's really interesting.
We didn't talk about it at WrestleMania.
Right. Yeah.
They handed me the barber scissors and a white coat 3 days later when we showed up to do TV in Rockford, what's it called? Rockford. It's in upstate Rochester.
Oh, Rochester,
New York.
Yep.
You got the old War Memorial.
Yep, Rochester War Memorial.
Building they tore down.
Yeah.
They tore it down years ago.
Let's see. Oh, okay, real quick. Having experienced both the WWF and the rise in the 80s to the WCW, and I think I know the answer to this one, but what was most enjoyable? And you can do quick answers on these.
I wasn't sure what's the question there?
Having experienced both the WWF through the 80s rise and then being with WCW during its rise, how different were the two, and what was the most enjoyable?
Well, the talent, being around the guys was definitely the most enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
Meeting and being able, being around the best talent in the world that the world wrestling's ever seen was definitely the most fun. And the territories were different. WWE was a little stricter, and dressing room etiquette and policies were a little stricter. WCW was a little looser. Everything was less pressure and stuff. So it was two different, totally different. But at the same time, it was still very exciting. There was still a lot of excitement. The rise of the WCW and the Monday Night Wars, the NWO, and all that was a really exciting time. There was some really, really fun. Got to meet some really crazy people, the Hells Angels, and all the guys that NWO was riding. The Hog Wild out in Vegas and all this stuff. And that was some really fun times, some great times.
It's amazing, Brutus, that you were part of both of those. I mean, somebody would have just loved to have been able to been backstage for that. You were a part of both the rise of the WWF and the WCW. It's just amazing. Okay, Brian Florio says, let's see, AJ Ganella says, what was your worst post-Brutus gimmick? You had a few of them. What stands out as the one you're just like, oh, man, I wish I would have never have had to...
Well, the Booty Man, I was a little crazy about the whole Booty Man. The Butcher thing was short, but was okay. I enjoyed the Zodiac, the Dungeon of Doom times were great because you began to hang out with those guys and do the stuff that we did was a blast. Yeah. And the Booty Man was really kind of lame, and but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, man, to put bread on the table, and it's not. Nobody ever said it's going to be easy.
Nope. And
so you just got to do what you got to.
The greatest.
Sometimes you got to make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
That's right. And the greatest of all time have bad gimmicks to tell you about. I guarantee it. Let's see. Last question here. Brian Florio says, what was the plan, and we touched on this a little bit before the accident in summer of 1990, anything set beyond SummerSlam? And you mentioned this. They did have plans for you before that happened.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, John. Most of the time, the Intercontinental Belt is usually a grooming tool when they're grooming you to eventually go and take the world title and be the world champion and be the leader of the whole pack there and stuff like Hulk had done for so many years. So I mean that was pretty much going to be their plan and stuff. And so unfortunately it wasn't meant to be, but I still I'm just thankful and grateful to have got all the opportunities that I did get, and to get as far farther. It would have been nice to have got the world title there or something, but not necessary. Sometimes there's people that you remember because they were champions, and some people you just remember because they were exciting. And I think I was one of those guys that people remember because I was just doggone exciting. And there was a certain magic and charisma and that people, connected with. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Hey, Brutus, before we sign off, I'm going to tell everybody, you got to check out the book. I'm sure you can still get it. It's Brutus the Barber, Beefcake, Struttin' and Cuttin'. Folks, there are some great stories in here. Like I said, a lot of people say this is one of the best books ever. How can they get a hold of it?
BrutusBeefcake.com.
All right.
BrutusBeefcake.com. We're right in there, and you can get photos and T-shirts and action figures and the whole shebang. You know, you can write me on
You know what we're going to do?
Facebook.
You're on Sean's show. Anybody who buys the book at BrutusBeefcake.com for $23.95 and just puts Sean Mooney in the email subject, will upgrade to signed and personalized for free. So that's a big saving.
Awesome. You hear that, folks? You go to BrutusTheBarberBeefcake.com.
Right from the boss.
Yeah, and you're going to get it signed. So put Sean Mooney in the subject there when you inquire about the book, and you will get it signed personally. That's fantastic. See? I told you.
Put your name on it with a personal touch.
Yep.
From the barber.
And how do they follow you? On Twitter and Instagram and all those?
Twitter is Brutus Beefcake, Brutus Beefcake _. My Facebook's under Edward H. Leslie, my real name.
Yeah.
And what's the Instagram thing, honey?
Brutus_Beefcake.
Brutus _Beefcake.
All right.
I think.
All right. Go eat your great dinner, okay? And I want to thank you, Brutus. Really, it's been awesome.
Wait.
I love chatting with you. We'll do it again sometime, and I can't wait to see you down the road.
Well, thanks, Sean. We really appreciate it, man. It's great since we reconnected there in New Jersey that day.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure.